Somewhere in a cave in what's now Somerset, England, about 15,000 years ago, a family is starving. Snow's been falling for weeks, the food they stored is gone, and someone in that group just died. Here's the part that's hard to say out loud. They didn't bury him, they ate him. And before you picture some snarling, savage version of a human being, stop, because the evidence says something way stranger. There was no violence, no struggle, just careful, deliberate butchery, marrow cracked out of the bones, skulls shaped into cups. This wasn't an attack. It was math. That's what we're getting into today. Not the pretty version of ancient winter survival. Furs, fire, cozy caves. The real version. Because for almost all of human history, winter wasn't a season you decorated for. It was the thing most likely to kill you. And when the math stopped working, when there wasn't enough food for everyone to make it to spring, humans made choices that would get you arrested today. So let's start with the logic that made all of it possible. Because none of this makes sense without it. The waste nothing rule. If you were an ancient human staring down a 6-month winter, calories weren't a preference, they were survival currency. And the densest calories on the planet aren't in a steak, they're in fat and marrow, so nothing got wasted. Bones were cracked open for the grease inside. Organs got eaten before muscle because they spoil faster and pack more energy per bite. Hides were scraped down to nothing and reused until there was nothing left to reuse. That single mindset, waste nothing because nothing means you die, is the seed that grows into every dark decision on this list. Keep that in your head, because it's about to get a lot more uncomfortable. The cave that changed how we think about the Ice Age. Back to that cave in England. It's called Gough's Cave, and what researchers found there in the late 80s and 90s rewrote what we thought we knew about Ice Age Britain. Human bones, including a child around 3 years old and a couple of teenagers, showing clear signs of being processed exactly like an animal carcass. Cut marks where meat was stripped off. Long bones cracked for marrow. And here's the detail that stops people cold. 3 skulls carved into bowls. Now here's the twist, because it's never just one thing with this stuff. Researchers expected to find evidence of violence, a fight, a struggle, something explaining why these people died. There wasn't any, which means this probably wasn't murder followed by desperation eating. And when scientists checked dozens of other sites from the same culture across Europe, they found the exact same pattern, over and over. So was this hunger? Or was it something else? A funeral rite where eating the dead was the send-off? Nobody's fully sure. Some researchers think it might have been both at once, because in real scarcity, survival and ritual don't always stay separate.
The math nobody wants to talk about. Cannibalism sounds like the darkest part of this story. It's not, because before it ever gets to that point, groups facing famine had to make a colder decision first. Who eats? In a famine, food doesn't stretch to feed everyone equally, so the people who could still hunt, still walk, still contribute, they got fed first. The old, the sick, sometimes infants, they got fed last, or not at all. Nobody wrote this down as a policy. It didn't need to be. It's just what happens when there's not enough to go around and somebody has to decide. And you'd like to think you'd never make that call, but you've also never been 3 weeks from starving with kids counting on you. The myth you've heard, and the truth that's actually darker. You've probably heard some version of this. Arctic peoples putting their elderly out on ice floes and setting them adrift. It gets repeated as this ultimate symbol of brutal, primitive culture. Except that specific image, the ice floe, is basically a myth. Historians and anthropologists who've actually studied it say there's no real evidence it happened that way. The truth is messier and, honestly, sadder. During genuine famines, which were rare, not routine, some elderly members of Inuit and Netsilat communities were left behind during winter migrations, or in extreme cases, asked to be helped toward death themselves. The explorer Knud Rasmussen documented elders saying, essentially, that when they could no longer contribute and death wouldn't come on its own, it was custom to help it along. That's not the cartoon version of primitive people abandoning grandma. That's people who believed, often themselves, that a chosen death let a family survive one more winter, and that this mattered more than one more year for them.
When an entire continent starved, fast forward to Europe in 1315, it rains and rains for 2 straight years. Crops rot in the fields, livestock dies from disease, grain prices double, then triple. This is the Great Famine, and by the time it's over, somewhere between 5 and 12% of northern Europe is dead. Chronicles from the time describe people eating horses, eating dogs, and, according to some accounts, eating each other. One story claims prisoners tore apart and devoured people freshly thrown into their cells. Here's the rehook, though. A lot of historians today say, yes, the crime wave was real, yes, the starvation was catastrophic, but the cannibalism stories? Mostly unproven. Some may have been exaggeration, moral panic, storytelling dressed up as fact. In fact, some historians trace one of these famine legends directly to a fairy tale you already know, Hansel and Gretel, a story literally born from parents abandoning children they couldn't feed. Which raises the question, how much of what we call dark history is real, and how much did we make darker because it made a better story? What all of this actually tells us, none of what you just heard was cruelty for its own sake. Every single one of these decisions, eating the dead, feeding the strong first, letting an elder walk away into the cold, came from the exact same place, a group of people staring at not enough, trying to make sure someone survived to see spring. We like to think we're nothing like the people who made those calls, but strip away the thermostat, the grocery store, the hospital down the road, and the math doesn't change. It just hasn't found you yet. They didn't have better options. They had the only ones winter left them.